said, Dad, are you making these things up? He said, no, of course not, it's true. He did loads of pranks on his fellow medical students at Cambridge, and he did loads of pranks with his staff in Syria, where we had a hospital in Aleppo, in a place called Aleppo. And he was just like, there's my dad. I mean, God, you're the face of authority and, elderly wisdom. But obviously, everyone's human. And it was just an amazing experience because I was his daughter, I was one of 5, I'm a twin, and it was just like he just told it how it was and just spent the week, I did it weekly, and he just wrote little notes to himself, and then when I turned up, he would always say, come on then, there's your favourite bit of wine, there's your favourite wine, there's your favourite foods, and we'll have a nice time. And my little sister Heidi used to come in and she used to interrupt us in the drawing room. What are you doing, Barbara? What's going on? I said, go on, Heidi, shush, go away. And but you heard the ambience of the house where when we came to this country, we were brought up in. So, we could hear the telephone. If we had a dog, we could hear it barking, but we didn't. But you could hear the telephone ringing and you could hear people interrupting and you could hear the sound and the soul of the house. And we just went through everything. He had an extraordinary time while he was at Cambridge doing medicine. He was an asthmatic during the period of life when you're not supposed to think of this as being a proper disease. It was just made up. And you were work shy and possibly a little bit lazy. And he developed asthma when he was doing his medical exams. Went to the doctor there, and he said, "Oh, Roger, you're just being silly. Don't worry about it." And he was saying that at a very early age, this was when he was in his 20s, he just thought, one day when I'm in a position to, I'm absolutely going to do something about this asthma problem. And what was so fascinating about doing a chronological interview is it does build. Ideas don't just come from nowhere, and you can see the gestation of that ambition right from the beginning. Somebody was racist towards him, and he just kind of stamped on his toe and tickled him, and that was the end of it. He was a very, I suppose, un-PC kind of person of today's standards. He just got on with it. And he was always very, very keen to sort of tell you that you've got to have a mission in life and you've got to succeed. Even if you don't succeed, you've tried. You don't want one of these people who just goes around saying, if only, if only, if only. You've got to just go for it and try. And he instilled that very big thought in all of us children. And the big lesson for me then came when he did die. I think he hung on for me to do the final recording, and then he was very happy to die in his own home, surrounded by all his children and my mum. But what was really the big lesson for me was that afterwards, each of my brothers and sisters and my mum said, Barb, can we have a copy of your audio? But don't tell anybody else in the family. Do not tell anybody in the family. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to give it to them. The swines, they almost stopped me doing it. What ridiculous people. Just want to ask you, does anybody have a view about what they would do in that situation? What would you have done?
I'd share it.
Well, okay, I shared it. But it was a big lesson for me, and, I did sort of say it right at the end, after the funeral and the rest of it, I'm going to share it to all of you so you can stop asking me. But they felt ashamed because the moment he died, they were then thinking, well, how much do we know of him? And, well, interesting that, isn't it, that was my story, and I would definitely advise you all to think about your own legacy, your own audio biography, if you like, and don't leave it too late. Many moons later, as I said, I created, so I was on television for a long time, and then we sold our company, and I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll start audio recording people in prisons, because they've got a story to tell. Why not start with them? Anyway, I was told, no, you can't do that, because we don't have the security level that you'll need when people try and slip you this, and that, and the other, so that didn't happen. So I contacted my local hospice, which is called Princess Alice in Esher, and overnight, I got a message from her. It must have been about 11 o'clock at night, saying, come tomorrow, we want to hear from you. This is a great idea. And at that time, you know, it was just an idea. That's all it was. And they were just so sweet. They said, look, we'll learn together, but let's do it. And then a few weeks later after that, we thought, well, we've got to train people. It was very interesting to hear the opening speech earlier on about the art of listening, because what we soon discovered was that people don't actually listen. They really don't listen. And if you do listen, it is quite tiring, because you've actually got to take in what they're saying, and you've got to assimilate what it means in your next phase of questioning. An interview, as we create our own training for our own charity, is very much about exquisite listening, and it's about doing it so that you don't interview. It's not like being a reporter, which is obviously my background. It's about listening and then just jogging along that story. And when you do record people's life stories, as I started doing so at Princess Alice, you realise that you've got this incredible job. You know, there's me thinking I've got a highfalutin job in TV, but in fact, this is far more important, because you're in a really privileged position, because you're hearing somebody's life, their actual life, and what they did with it, and what they are still doing with it. So, you know, it's not something one should treat lightly. At that stage, and it's still the case now, we are private and confidential. We don't share our recordings with anybody. What we do is we always give it to the patient or the person, the storyteller, and let them decide who they want to share it with. We also don't edit. If you edit something and you get it wrong, and you get their story wrong, that can be very disastrous. But what I noticed in the hospice was that nobody wanted to be interviewed in the beginning. They would say things like, well, you've got a strange surname, where are you from? And I'd say, no, it's not about me, it's about you. You know, do you want to be interviewed? No, I don't know you, no. And this went on for 3 months, and I would make the tea, and I would join the arts class, and you know, I was just trying to make myself useful. There's no way I was going to leave there without starting it. And then suddenly this lady came along and said, Barbara with a long surname, which is what I became known as, do you want to interview me? And I said, yeah. And she said, I just feel so sorry for you. I'm just going to let you do it, because I feel really sorry for you. I went, oh, okay. Well, let's just do it. And what she did was she allowed me to interview her. It was great. All interviews are great, no matter what their lives. It's just a landscape. It's something that you can never forget. But what she did was she started saying to the other group, look, this isn't frightening, you know, and they then started saying things like, your socks don't match. And I would go, oh. Or they would make a remark about my hair, or because I used to cycle there, and I live in Wimbledon and cycled to Esher, so it was always all over the place. And I suddenly realised that they were trying to use humour. I never took offence to any of these things. They were just trying to find a common ground. And after that, it all just flew. It was really, really successful. I used to have a waiting list of people waiting to be interviewed. And during that period, it was very exciting. We got lots of people in our charity who were rich and famous. There was Ed Sheeran and Jon Snow and Sir David Suchet. They're all patrons of our charity, and they all made little films for us. And that was very, very helpful. And by 2020, the hospice biographers had trained 100 people. Can I just say the training was partly thanks to Sharon here and North London Hospice. They helped us shape it because we didn't have a clue how to do it. And what was I saying? What was I saying? 2020, yeah. By 2020, we'd recorded, we'd trained 100 people in 60 hospices, and it was really going well. We got lots of publicity. It was all just superb. And also, we then got Robert Peston. Don't know if you all know him. He came along and I created a format so that people, it was called How I Became Robert Peston. And we hired a posh hall in the centre of London, in Holborn, in Queen Anne Square. And people came along, and we got on Radio 4, and we did a really good interview with Robert Peston, and it just worked so well. And we got lots of publicity, and they started a biography format themselves, Radio 4 did, where they just asked ordinary people to just write about their lives in 400 words. And that lasted for 2 weeks, entirely inspired by our charity. So we were really big-headed by that time, and we were really very, very pleased. Then the pandemic came, and we were completely smashed to pieces. Most of our networks were completely ruined, and lots of charities our size were just closing. And we had a serious conversation, shall we just close? And I just thought, no, we're not going to close. We're not going to close. What we're going to do is we're going to adapt. We're going to change. We're going to adapt or die, but we're not going to close until we've had a chance. And so what we did is we extended our remit. So we're now recording anybody in the country, in Britain, who is in their twilight years and would like to have an audio recording with us. Remotely, and we are going to expand where we are recording. Some kind person heard me on Radio 4 and gave us 3 years funding, very generous indeed, and we decided to extend what we record. So what we did during the pandemic is we recorded almost 240 people within 2 months. I'd never known them before. They just came to us through contacts, and all we said is, can we connect with you? You know, and we called it Family Talk, and we just connected with people who wanted to have their lives recorded, and also be connected. So one of the formats that I created was something called Family Talk, where you as a grandparent are connected with your grandchildren anywhere in the world. It doesn't need to be a grandchild, it can just be somebody who's younger. It's intergenerational is the idea. And it was just fantastic. You know, we went into the States, Australia, New Zealand, all the English-speaking countries you can think of, but we also went to war zones. You know, we went to India, Beirut, Afghanistan, Yemen, Ethiopia, and we recorded grandparents here on digital, obviously on WhatsApp audio, and connected them with their grandchildren wherever they were in the world. And the grandchild was instructed to create 10 questions they didn't know about their grandparent. The questions were examined by the grandparent before recording, just in case there was a problem area. And it was just great. You could hear them both laughing away. We started hiring an audio engineer for best possible sound quality. We trained people who were biographers like me at that stage, where we were just recording remotely, but we recorded them with other people in this Q&A situation of 10 questions. And they were just laughing their heads off. And they were giggling and they were... I mean, that's what you want. It is a form of biography. It doesn't have to be somber, oh, woe is me. It can be actually fun. And that's the point, really. And it doesn't need to be frightening. We also started, during this period, recording lots of dementia patients, early dementia patients. And so we created another format for them, which is not rocket science, very easy. They just record something of their literature or poems that they like, that they used to be, you know, that they used to enjoy reading. And they would just record it, and they would keep it for themselves and pass it on to the family, and everybody could hear their voices. And the other format that we started was just where you only record somebody's, you know, happy memories. They don't go through the chronology of their life story. They do 3 to whatever it is, happiest memories. And that really worked as well. But the most popular one has been the family chat, just because it is so heartwarming. And yeah, it just worked. And so that went on. And then so we started Stories for Life. And let me tell you about what we offer. So it's free of charge, completely free of charge. It is private and confidential. And we don't edit, and we do it over the phone. In some instances, we can do face-to-face. It's just, it's not always the case that we're going to be able to find a biographer who can get there. But what we're doing is we are going to continue in hospices, but we're now going anywhere where there are people who are fit and well and want to be included. So we're doing Age UK, we're doing Rotary, we're doing lots of different groups. Prideaux House, which is a house for the homeless in Hackney. We're doing a posh care home called Pegasus Grange in Oxford. We're doing a whole kaleidoscope we're doing LGBTQ plus people who are engaged in an area where I live, near Wandsworth. And each of them, the idea is that we train 2 members to become biographers, so that when our pilot, which is what we're conducting at the moment, we're conducting this pilot to find out which communities like what we're doing the most, we will then train them to carry on the work that we've started in the pilot. So you, I don't know if you realise, are all part of this pilot, where we are assessing whether or not you're happy with us, whether or not you want to continue. Do you want to become a biographer? In which case we will train you. Do you know somebody who would like to be recorded, given given the criteria that I've given? You must understand that we understand that not everybody wants to be recorded. And if they don't, they should jolly well say, I don't want to be recorded. And we'll go, that's fine. It's not everybody's cup of tea. It really isn't. All we're saying is, if you want to be recorded, if you think it'll be fun, then come and see us, and we'll do it for you. That's it. Oh, do you have any questions?